Hey there, Geoff Manchester from iZotope. In this video, I'm going to be showing off new workflows with some of the improved and overhauled modules in RX11 specifically for post-production professionals. So if you're working on a film, television, even a podcast, YouTube video, there are going to be workflows in here that I think are really going to save your butt. And if you want to follow along at home, you can go to iZotope.com, download a free trial of RX11 Elements Standard or Advanced. I think you should go for Advanced. This way you can have it alongside the video, try some of the presets, work your way through the modules, do what I'm showing you, clean some really nasty audio with me in this video. So just go there to the link in the description or the pop-out link. Many ways to get to iZotope.com. Just get there and download a trial. And without further ado, let's hop into the tutorial. We're going to be talking about a couple modules that have seen a really big overhaul in terms of DSP and quality and performance improvements. Namely, we're talking about Dialogue Isolate, which is a huge and very important module, and Dialogue Contour as well. So I'm going to start with Dialogue Isolate and show you what is new about it. I'm also going to show you, what it sounds like on a variety of tracks that have their own kind of noise and problematic spoiled audio within some very important dialogue. So I'll navigate over here and click it. And it looks like this. It's like an old friend with a new haircut. So we have an extra slider here, which is reverb. In the past, RX10, RX9, we had Dialogue De-reverb. We no longer have that module anymore. We only have Dialogue Isolate with this reverb slider to attenuate or completely remove reverb. And we have De-reverb, which is more of an all-purpose reverb remover, good for instruments and what have you. But in Dialogue Isolate, you'll find the reverb slider here is really tailored and optimized for dialogue specifically. So if you're dealing with someone speaking, use Dialogue Isolate. One could use it for sung vocals. It's not optimized for sung vocals, but if you get good results with it, cool. And if you don't, try De-reverb, the all-purpose one that I just mentioned. If you have RX11 standard, it's going to look like this, the Dialogue Isolate module. If you have the advanced version, it's going to look like this. Open this little partition and we get these cattails, which allows us to go in and really tailor the processing of, whether we're manipulating the voice, the reverb, or the noise per frequency band, which we can change over here by moving the cattails around and then just go down here and move the various gauges to wherever we think we want to, move them, depending on where the severity of the noise, reverb, or what have you happens to be in the audio. So that's a nice little feature that you can now use. What you can't really see from this module in RX11, but what is ready in Dialogue Isolate is that you can use it in real time. So in a plugin, in your DAW. So for the first time ever, you don't have to be in RX to benefit from the amazing power and performance of Dialogue Isolate. You can use it in your DAW of choice in real time, and you can also use it in the advanced version here with these sliders to really tailor the processing to, whatever it is that you're working on in a multiband way. So super exciting. For this video, I'm just going to focus on what can be done in the standalone RX application. So let's have a listen to this audio file and let's tackle some problems within it with the new Dialogue Isolate.
Are you prepared as you follow the path of marriage to love and honor each other for as long as you both shall live?
Not the noisiest audio file, but we certainly have some reverb. This sounds like it was recorded in a room with no acoustic treatment. The sound was bouncing off and meeting itself and just being very reverberant. So with Dialogue Isolate, I can pop this open and I'm going to close this partition and just bring the reverb down minus infinite. And I'm going to use, because I'm in the offline application, the best quality option and hit render. Now, a quick word on sensitivity as this processes. If I bring the sensitivity slider all the way to the left, the Dialogue Isolate module is going to really rip apart the reverb from the dialogue. So we know we're going to get a very reverb lacking dialogue file, which might have some kind of artifacts in it. If we move it all the way over here, it's going to be a little bit more sensitive with what it thinks and listens to in terms of what's reverb and what's dialogue. And it might be a little bit more gentle. You'll notice that the default position, if you double click, it's going to bring it to 5 sensitivity. We think you should leave it there unless you feel like it hasn't done a good enough job tearing away the reverb from the dialogue. Then experiment over here or over here, depending on, what you hear and what you like.
Are you prepared as you follow the path of marriage to love and honor each other for as long as you both shall live? Are you prepared as you follow the path of marriage to love and honor each other for as long as you both shall live? Are you prepared as you follow the path of marriage to love and honor each other for as long as you both shall live?
So we have a really nicely separated dialogue track. We have the reverb pulled apart from it, and it sounds clean, it sounds pristine. We don't lose any integrity of the vocal. And of course, if you want to add a bit more oomph or something to the vocal after you have gotten rid of the reverb, you can do so by adding a handy EQ or going to EQ Match and just borrowing a profile from a track that you like that sounds nice and rich and full-bodied and imposing that on the newly de-reverbed track. But there you go. It's pretty easy. And of course, if you have the advanced version of Dialogue Isolate, you can really target and tailor the processing of that de-reverb DSP to only kind of work its magic in the low mids or something like that. But in this case, I think most people are just going to go for a blanket process where they just get rid of the reverb across the entire file. But that flexibility is there should you need it. Let's switch to another file where we have a couple of problems happening. Some noise, and I think once we get rid of the noise, you'll uncover some reverb as well. So have a listen to this file before we do any processing.
Improv is acting without a script. The main rule of improv is yes and, which means that you agree with what the person tells you and you add to it.
Noisy, not very pleasant to listen to. Let's call up Dialogue Isolate and double click to return the reverb to its default position. And let's go over here to noise and bring this all the way down and we'll do the first 10 seconds or so. We'll stick with our quality of best/offline, leave sensitivity where it is. And by the way, if you don't really know where to begin with Dialogue Isolate, we always have really handy presets for you right up here, okay? And I'll just close this and hit render. So just as before, let's start with the after and then go into the before in a different point of time in this audio file, starting with the after.
Improv is acting without a script. The main rule of improv is yes and, which means that you agree with what the person tells you and you add to it. It's also a great skill for learning how to pivot on the spot, think outside the box, think
really crisp, sounds great. In fact, it's done such a wonderful job of just getting rid of the noise that it's left that acoustic profile of the reverb around the voice. So let's bring the reverb down as well. And I will just once again select just from that 10-second mark or so, and we should be good to go. So now hopefully we've gotten rid of the reverb and the noise, and then we're going to go into what this sound file sounded like before we did any work at all after that 10-second mark.
Improv is acting without a script. The main rule of improv is yes and, which means that you agree with what the person tells you and you add to it. It's also a great skill for learning how to pivot on the spot, think outside the box.
And there you go. Really simple to use, really simple to operate. With just a couple of selections and sliders, you can get a great result. And I should say that for those of you that are diehard RX10 algorithm aficionados, you will not find the legacy algorithm in this Dialogue Isolate. You're only going to have the latest and greatest processing with this module in RX11. We believe very strongly that this new algorithm is going to be more than enough for your de-reverb and denoising needs when it comes to dialogue. And just a special note for those that are working on noisy tracks in general, noisy dialogue, you might be thinking that Dialogue Isolate would be great for line noise, buzz, and hum. It might be able to tackle those issues, but what it's really great for is steady state or intermittent background noise that isn't necessarily buzzy or hummy. In fact, for those problems, we have a module called Dehum, which is very, very sophisticated and great at getting rid of those problems. And if that's not enough, if you're like, I've tried Dialogue Isolate, I've tried Dehum, we have Spectral Denoise as well, which is kind of a very beloved module here that gets rid of pretty much anything you need noise-wise if those two options fail. And if things are really still in a lurch for you, you can always try one of my favorite modules. It's pretty kind of underrated in my opinion. It's called Deconstruct. And this is great, not just for dialogue, but for other kinds of noise as well. Found sound or instruments or field recordings. It's really great for that stuff too. So a couple of options, but really at the end of the day, we think you should be, set more than enough with the new Dialogue Isolate in RX11. Okay, so the next module that I want to show you is another that has been deeply improved, and that's Dialogue Contour. We've heard from a lot of people, I love this module. It's great for Frankenbites. If you're an editor, you'll know what those are. It's great for if I have to borrow a word from somewhere else and then try to make it fit the dress code of the rest of the sentence, but I would like it to be a bit more visual, to be a bit easier to use and navigate and have a couple more controls. And so that's what we've done with Dialogue Contour. We've given you a huge kind of visual canvas from which you can work with new markers to identify expressivity and inflection. And this is how it works. So right now, I've called it up and it tells you exactly what needs to happen in order to move forward. In the editor, select the dialogue that you want to be edited. So I'll just hit Command A. And now we see a spectrogram, but also this pitch display, which shows us, again, that expressivity, where the kind of emotion and variation of the dialogue is going, superimposed against that nice waveform display. So as we have a listen to this, you'll see that this first word here, it goes up. And it starts off, very high. It's like a ha, and then it kind of goes down all the way to the end of the sentence. And then we kind of go back up, the roller coaster as another word kind of marches out here at the end of the sentence. And you'll see this kind of correspond nicely when you listen to it now that I've given you some context and you have that pitch curve. So let's take a listen to the dialogue.
Please listen carefully as our menu options have changed. Your time in queue is 4 hours.
So it's kind of neat to see the way the pitch curve maps onto the waveform. It's very often in our own speech, and maybe even as I do this video, that we start our sentences with a lot of energy and then it kind of goes down from there. And so to have those visual cues as you're editing, I think is really cool and helpful and just informative. And if we want to alter the dynamics, the expressiveness of this dialogue, well, that's what Dialogue Contour is all about. So we have a couple of new parameters that are really cool and give you new ways to manipulate the dialogue. One that I want to highlight here is variation. One of the great things about this slider is if I move it up and down after we kind of understand what this pitch curve is, we can see in the orange here the kind of new pitch curve that will be grafted on to this dialogue. And the gray is the old pitch curve, what it was before we did any manipulation. And this is really great if you want to further accentuate the expressiveness of the speaker or kind of dial it down and make it a little more monotone and have perhaps less energy and expressiveness. So in this case, we have the first sentence here, which is that like, hi, blah, 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 blah. And we can see that, just like the second sentence, it's pretty pitchy. It kind of goes up and down. If we want to bring some uniformity to that, well, what I could do is just make a selection to the first part so we can kind of zoom in here on that sentence and bring the variation down a little bit. We don't want to go too crazy and introduce artifacts or anything. After all, Dialogue Contour, just like the first edition, the second edition, it's really about micro tweaks and very kind of fine tuning of the dialogue. So I'll go minus, let's say I can write something in as well, minus 15, just to make this a bit more monotone. And then I'll hit render. So here's before.
Please listen carefully as our menu options have changed.
And after.
Please listen carefully as our menu options have changed.
So that please at the beginning of the sentence just drops in energy a little bit, gets more uniform. One more time. Before.
Please listen carefully as our menu options have changed. Please listen carefully as our menu options have changed.
A little more robotic, but maybe that's what you want. If you have to put someone through a recorded message, you want it to be, factual and informative and not very exciting. But if you want to add some excitement, well, you have the option to do so. So in this next passage, I'm going to make a selection, hit Dialogue Contour. It'll populate here. I'll just reset my parameters. We have a couple of words here. I'd say some bad news, especially in this part right here. Have a listen.
Your time in queue is 4 hours.
Very robotic and sad. 4 hours you have to wait. So maybe we can soften the blow a little bit and make that 4 hours a bit more exciting, like, surprise, it's going to be 4 hours. Now that I have my selection made, I'm going to continue working in Dialogue Contour and draw some points here. And this is on the word 4. To double check, I could just listen to it again.
Your time in queue is 4 hours.
So I'm going to punch this up a little bit. I'll use the curve smoothing just to kind of make it, less linear in a way and smooth it out. And we can see right away in this pitch trace, before in gray, we were high, but now we're going to go a little higher with the orange. We're more expressive. Here's before.
Your time in queue is 4 hours.
And after.
Your time in queue is 4 hours.
Softens the blow a little bit, not so bad. 4 hours. We could take it even further if we wanted to. I'll go back one step, bring it up a little bit more. Before.
Your time in queue is 4 hours. Your time in queue is 4 hours.
So you can see we can go a little bit beyond in semitones where we were before, and not a lot of artifacts in there, especially if you had visuals paired to this. It's pretty transparent. And in the same way that I brought things a bit more monotone in the first part of the sentence with my variation slider, I could do the opposite and make this a bit more dynamic by punching up the variation a little bit. Again, to kind of soften the blow of the bad news for how long you have to wait. So I'm going to push this up, let's say about 20. Not too crazy. Hit render. So we should get a more energetic and maybe personable, happy voice here conveying the bad news about how much time it's going to take. Here's before.
Your time in queue is 4 hours. Your time in queue is 4 hours.
You can see in the gain trace that just by moving the variation up across things globally, what I've selected, it adds a bit of brightness to the entire passage. So you can imagine applying this processing to perhaps a character that is maybe a bit sullen that you want to kind of maximize the sadness and maybe bring them things a bit more monotone, or you have something that needs to be brightened and just made a bit more dynamic and happy, and you can push up the variation. You can, of course, play with pitch and form it and make even more dots here across things and, to really kind of fine tune your Franken edits and what have you. By the way, I'm just clicking to add dots, and if I want to remove them, I would hit Control and just click over them and they would be gone. And just like before in Dialogue Isolate, if you don't know where to start, check the presets up here. You can go up or down 3 semitones, offset word down 2 semitones. And of course, for this, you would just highlight a word like this, and then go to end of word up 3 semitones, click that, and you can see this ramp up and go up and to the right. So that is how to use the presets on a word by word basis by selecting something, going into Contour, choosing from the menu, and then hitting render, of course. That is the brand new Dialogue Contour, designed for post-production professionals working on Frankenbites and just trying to make things sound nice and finessed and massaged when you have a bunch of little words strung together and you're trying to make them sound cohesive. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you learned something new around how to tackle problems like dialogue intonation and expressivity with Dialogue Contour, or how to get rid of reverb and noise with the new Dialogue Isolate module in RX11. If you want to get a free trial, again, just head to iZotope.com where you can download a free trial of RX11 and all of our other products. And for all things iZotope, stay subscribed to the iZotope YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Take care.